She never screamed when he dragged her away. Not out of strength. But because silence had more dignity than begging. The room had been full of gasps, trembling hands, and frozen eyes when Dominic Romano stormed the wedding. A gun in one hand, a stare that turned courage into ashes, and her in the other. Dressed in white, Arya looked like a bride carved for someone else's fate. And he took her, like she was always meant to be his possession, not someone's promise. The mansion he brought her to wasn't home, it was a golden cage carved in nightmares. Velvet curtains. Glass walls. Guards at every door. And silence, except for the echo of her heartbeat, which didn't know whether to scream or hide. He didn't touch her the first night. He didn't speak either. He simply stood near the fireplace, sipping his wine like it was blood, watching her from the corner of his eyes. She asked, finally, breaking the silence. Why me? His eyes didn't blink. Because your father needed to understand that everything has a price, and you were the most expensive thing he had. She wanted to scream at him. But something in his voice wasn't rage. It was pain pretending to be power. Days passed like scars being carved slowly. She didn't cry in front of him. He didn't show mercy. He wanted her to fear him. And she did. But fear started mixing with something else, curiosity. Because behind the monster, she saw flashes. A man who paused too long near a child's drawing. A man who stared at the rain like it reminded him of a funeral. One night, she tried to run. Barefoot, breathless, heartbeat loud. She got as far as the garden wall before she felt his hand on her arm. She turned, ready to fight, but his hand didn't hurt her. He just looked at her, breathing hard. And for the first time, his voice cracked. You think I enjoy this? That I wanted this? She froze. His voice wasn't angry, it was broken. That was the first time she saw the scar behind his cruelty. She began to see patterns. He never hurt women. He always watched her but never touched her without control. He had nightmares. She heard him once, whispering a name in his sleep, Lena. I'm sorry. That night, she sat outside his door for hours, not knowing why. Maybe because monsters aren't born. They're made by promises that broke and blood that never washed off. One day, she asked about Lena. He didn't answer with words. He opened a drawer and handed her a photo, a woman, delicate and smiling. My sister, he said. They killed her. And I became the kind of man who couldn't be killed by feelings anymore. She returned the photo. And for the first time, she looked at him, not as a monster. But a man buried beneath rage. Weeks passed. They began to talk more. She challenged his beliefs. He tested her patience. And slowly, the line between captive and captor blurred. One evening, the world shifted. He brought her roses, black ones. I thought these matched your heart, he smirked. She stared at the flowers. And replied softly, then I'll keep them, to remind me what kind of heart gave them. He said nothing. But that night, he didn't sleep. He watched her from the shadows, struggling with emotions that made his control bleed. Dominic was losing the war, not outside, but inside. He wanted to hate her. But now he hated every man who had ever touched her. He wanted to keep her afraid. But now he feared she'd leave. And Arya. She still feared him. But now, she feared what she would become without him. A storm outside. She's in the hallway, in a black silk nightgown, waiting. He walks behind her, slow and unreadable. Grabs her hand. Whispers in her ear. If I wanted to destroy you, I wouldn't need bullets. Just one touch. The real danger begins when you crave it. Because once you do, you'll beg for the man who came to ruin you. And she, for the first time, doesn't pull away. The mansion was dead silent. But not in peace. Silence here meant fear. It meant he was home. Dominic stood at the glass wall of his penthouse, watching the city lights burn like scattered fireflies. Beneath his cold stare was a storm, not of anger, but of something darker. Something twisted. Something he didn't name. Behind him, Arya sat on the edge of the leather sofa, her wrists still marked from earlier. Her eyes, that same fire that once slapped him across the face, now flickered low, dim, as though exhaustion and confusion were caging her defiance. It had been weeks since he crashed her wedding. Weeks since he dragged her from the altar like a possession. Her father hadn't dared to reach out again. Not after Dominic sent his men to burn his warehouse to ash. And Arya? She hadn't dared run. Not because she was afraid of what Dominic would do to her. But because she feared what he might do to her father if she did. But tonight was different. Dominic finally turned from the window, slowly, like a lion who'd finally chosen to speak to its prey. He walked toward her, his footsteps echoing with calm brutality. Arya stiffened. "I should have let you marry that businessman," he murmured, voice low and deadly smooth. "At least he would have treated you like a princess. You would have smiled. Maybe, you would have been happy." Arya looked up, confused. Was he, regretting it? But his next words twisted the knife. "But then I wouldn't get to watch you break. And you break so beautifully, Arya." She swallowed hard, her breath catching. Dominic leaned down, grabbing her chin, forcing her to look at him. His touch was rough, but not violent. Controlling. Dominating. Like he needed to prove something, to her, to himself. "You still think you hate me," he whispered, his mouth close to her ear. "If I wanted to destroy you, Arya, I wouldn't need bullets. Just one touch. And you'd beg me for more." Arya shivered. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was confusion. Anger. Intrigue. All tangled in the way he looked at her. As if she were both a weapon, and his weakness. That night, he didn't touch her again. But he didn't have to. He had already started living inside her head. Days passed. Dominic became colder. He stopped speaking. He'd leave early. Return late. And yet, Arya could feel his presence in every shadow. She started dreaming of him. Of his scars. Of that night. Of the way he held her wrists like he owned every bone in her body. One morning, she stood at the edge of the indoor pool, wrapped in a silk robe. And then she saw him, shirtless, scarred, standing across the water like a dark vision. Their eyes met. No words. Just silence, deep, heavy silence. He dove into the water. And Arya didn't move. Not when he emerged. Not when he walked toward her, dripping, his chest rising and falling slowly. "You keep looking at me like you want answers," he said. "But darling, you won't survive the truth." He walked away. Later that week, Arya tried to call her father. Just once. Just to hear his voice. But the call didn't go through. Dominic's voice echoed from behind her. "I said no contact, Arya." She turned, defiant. "He's my father." Dominic walked up, slowly, his face unreadable. "I could kill him. Right now. You think I don't know where he is?" Arya's eyes burned. "You're a monster." He smirked. "No. Monsters have hearts. I buried mine the day your father tried to have me killed." She froze. Dominic had never told her. Never spoken about the past. Until now. "You want truth," he said, stepping closer. "He ordered the hit on me when I was 19. Left me bleeding for dead in a warehouse. That scar on my chest. Your father gave me that." Arya's voice cracked. You're lying. But deep down, she didn't know anymore. He stared at her, jaw clenched. You think I chose this life? I survived it. That night, everything changed. Arya sat alone in the piano room. The lights dimmed. The keys untouched. Dominic walked in quietly, carrying a small velvet box. He didn't speak. He just placed it beside her. Inside was a necklace, silver, delicate, with a single blood-red gem. She looked up. Why are you giving me this? Dominic didn't answer. He turned to leave. But she stood. Dominic, wait. He paused. And for the first time, she saw it. A flicker. A shadow of something human in his eyes. She stepped closer. Why did you really take me from that wedding? He didn't turn. But his voice, it shook, just a little. Because watching you belong to someone else, felt worse than death. Then he left. 1 week later. A rival gang launched an ambush. Shots were fired. Dominic got hit. Twice. He made it back, bleeding, collapsing in the hallway. Arya screamed. She ran to him, catching his head before it hit the floor. Dominic. His eyes were open, barely. Don't cry, he whispered. I told you. Monsters don't die easy. She tried to stop the bleeding. Screamed for help. And in that chaos, she realized something. She didn't hate him anymore. She feared him. But she didn't want to lose him. Not now. Not like this. 2 days in silence. Dominic lay unconscious. Arya sat by his side, whispering to him at night. Telling him things she never dared say aloud. I don't know when you became more than fear to me. But now, I'd rather burn with you, than live in peace without you. His fingers twitched. And then, slowly, his eyes opened. Dominic looked at her. For the first time, no threats. No coldness. Just, rawness. And he whispered. You should have run. Arya leaned closer. I did. But somehow. I always ended up back in your hell. They looked at each other. 2 broken souls. Tied in fire. In vengeance. In a love that never asked permission. And as the city lights blinked outside, Dominic finally took her hand. To be continued.